Welcome to the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP, TRAP. Please follow us and join in the conversation on Twitter @Advisor Podcast, where you can suggest ideas and themes you'd like the TRAP team to discuss. Also remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a 6 out of 5-star review on iTunes. Doing all this really helps us, which means we can do more to help you. Now let's head over to the studio for the latest pile of TRAP.
Yes, indeed, dear TRAPists. Welcome back to what many people are calling episode 52 of the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP, TRAP. My name is Lick Lincoln, and joining me as ever in the studio of doom, the digital studio of doom, are the three other horsemen of the apocalypse. Andy Ultra Heart, Alan the Storyteller Smith, and Carl Della Voce, the Voice Widger. Now, gentlemen, we have a show packed full of
Oh, come on, Nick. Elephant in the
absolutely
room, my friend.
nothing.
Elephant in the
let's
room.
start
Come
packing
on,
it straight
come on,
away.
Nick.
Elephant in the
Come on,
room.
Nick.
What happened
Come
to
on,
you?
Nick.
Some religious ceremony on over there.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you were
Nick's got-
listening to this podcast, I recommend you switch over to YouTube and watch it.
Nick's got
And have a
some
look at
war
Nick
wins.
Lincoln. Explain yourself. Look at the state of
Quickly,
you.
over to
I
you.
had my horns removed.
Finally.
Let's just say my initial
375
attempt at
years on
paragliding in the foothills of the French Alps was suboptimal. But I did go again. And thank God I was wearing a helmet, because this would have been a lot worse.
That's with a
yes,
helmet?
Yes.
Wow.
So,
And we have all seen the
paraglide-
video, and we
Never
should share
paraglide.
it.
If the guy on your back is a foot smaller than you and Japanese, they have a tendency to want to dive into things. And this guy was. And we also crashed on landing as well, which is another story. But-
It was his fault. Okay.
no, I think it was the thermals, the swirling thermals or something. Anyway, Alpine
Well done for
pursuits.
trying, anyway.
I tried skiing 30 years ago. I was rubbish at that. I tried paragliding.
Well done for
was-
leaving Watford, Nick. Well done, mate.
Thank you, mate. Some of us have got to do it. Right, Andy, good friend, close personal friend. What's the bell? Read out one or more high-energy reviews, please.
Sure. The first review is entitled Best Advisor Podcast 5 stars. This is from Matt Pitcher, who a couple of us know very well. I'm a big fan of all four of these gents. This podcast is a hugely valuable resource for every advisor at any stage of their journey. I also know clients that listen to it and gain a huge amount of value. Even funnier when watched on YouTube, as we were just saying. Final review is from Jason Feather, entitled Great Insightful Listen, 5 stars. Having recently started my advisor journey in 2023, I owe a big thank you to you four gents for helping me to avoid a lot of the pitfalls that our profession offers. I work at a firm fully invested in active management, and going against the grain has been difficult, but the bi-weekly or fortnightly, depends on who you are, reinforcement from this podcast, in addition to the papers and research shared, has allowed me to be steadfast in my beliefs. I also owe a big thank you to Chris Thorpe at Agile Leads, who introduced me to your podcast. The advice to listen to you guys has been invaluable. Back to you, boss.
Lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. Thanks very much, Trappists. We do appreciate the reviews. Do keep them coming in. According to my app, which I think is Pocket Cast, is it? I never managed to remember the app, but you can now leave reviews on that. So if you're Android, and most of you are Android, try and do that, please, and leave a 6 out of 5-star review on your podcast app if they're rolling out to Android. I'm not sure if they feed into iTunes. I doubt it, because Apple's a very precious walled garden, isn't it? Tim Cook's got to milk that empire for as long as he can, because there's nothing news coming out of it for years and years. But hopefully they do go into the iTunes review pool. Right, topical tidbits. Let's crack on and put a timestamp on episode 52 with 5 and the 2. That's about as good as I get on the screen behind me. First off, gents, I did put this into the chat. I'm not sure if you saw it, but this morning, verily, in the post. Again, if you're listening to this, I'll just tap it. But that is our Next Gen award that we paid a lot of money for and entered and highly publicised and actually won. And I'll hold up the camera. That's our award for the Best Advisor Podcast from the Next Gen community. So thank you to the Adams and to Rowan for that.
Thank you, Next Gen.
Thank you,
We
Next
had
Gen.
a little
Yeah,
note
can we
on
have
them.
a round of applause?
Yes, I'm trying to do 3 things at once, and I can't do one thing at once. Hold on, applause. Oh my God. Clapping. There we go. And a little note from them, a written note. Hi, Nick. Congratulations on winning a Next Gen Planners Basil Award. We all love your podcast. Thank you, Team Next Gen. So thank you,
Nice.
girls
Amazing.
and guys, for that.
Thank you very much.
Okay. In the last episode, we talked about Hargreaves Lansdown delisting, and I made a typical sort of flippant comment that no doubt they've got a slavery policy. And they do have a slavery policy, and there's a link to it in the so-called show notes. Good night, UK PLC. Okay, moving on. Oh, Rod, you're recurring.
What's your concern about that, Nick? They have to produce it because their turnover is more than 36 million.
Yeah. Right, so you have to kick people in the nuts because they've got two legs. Because it's a rule, right? It's a stupid rule. It's nothing to do with... Why is an investment platform worried about apologising or even acknowledging slavery?
Transact have a modern slavery policy.
I know, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And Transact will probably delist soon as well. Right, Wodge. Here's another investment. Is there anything in your country involving money that doesn't involve investment fraud? And I say that with love to you and to Keane and all my Irish friends.
Well, would you believe the Gardaí, the police here, came out with a report on investment fraud last week. And lo and behold, you may joke, but I've become known as the local expert in this because I was invited onto the national radio to talk about it. Wow. But anyway, I just thought there was one case study that they came up. Thank you. There was one case study that they gave, which was mental. So people wondering how sophisticated these are. So this guy goes on, clicks a link, everything looks like it should. I think it was a cloned site. And he went, I'm still not sure, so I'm going to invest 500 quid. And the 500 quid turned into, I don't know, 5.5 or 6 grand. And he said, right, I'll withdraw my money just to make sure. And he did. And they gave it to him. Brilliant. So he told
Classic.
all his family and friends, load in here. These guys are unbelievable. So 250 grand is gone is the short part of a longer story. So, look, just be vigilant. It is what it is. I think they're going to get more and more clever, more and more sophisticated. AI is going to just ramp that up even more. But yeah, there's two parts of this story. They are very sophisticated. And if you keep talking about something, people go, oh, yeah, he's the expert in that. And you might get a bit of media coverage on it. So there you go.
Well done.
Yeah. Well done,
just on that, I can't remember. I don't think I mentioned to you. I was at home last week and I got a phone call on my mobile phone, and it was this guy, and he came across very plausible, and he said, "It's John here from Coinbase." Now I've got a Coinbase account. You might know it. It's a crypto platform. It's very sophisticated. It's probably the best one out there. US-based listed company. Got a pittance on it. Thankfully, very small amount of money. Anyway, he just said, we're doing a security check. Have you tried to access your account from Singapore? I said, no. Blah, blah, blah. On it went. And this guy, I got to tell you, and I'm pretty, alive and aware of this sort of stuff. Super, super plausible. He just said, look, I'm going to send you a text. If you just click through that. And I thought, tell you what, I said, just to be on the safe side, I'll call your head office. I'll call Coinbase, and that's when he sort of started to say, "Well, no, we don't take incoming calls." I thought, "Well, that's a bit dodge." Anyway, I didn't do anything. But the moral of the story is, I'm fairly sophisticated, and it was very, very plausible. And I'm just imagining.
Let's keep it going.
Yeah, all right. But just to back up Carl's point there, they are getting increasingly just quite good. This is not some sketchy act. It was a sort of obviously a well-spoken London-based. It sounded like a young guy. And it sounded very, very reasonable and appropriate. And just many people will be caught out. And the crazy thing is, he sends you a link, and it looks so legit. It's the easiest thing just to click the link, just see what happens. And then all of a sudden, I think then they've got all these worms or whatever, and they're in your system, and then God knows what they're going to do. So just beware.
Sorry, Andy, just to quickly, Smithy, not for the first time, you've managed to misspell storyteller. So let's just quickly address that.
That's a terrible one.
While you're handling these sophisticated phone calls. Andy.
It's just as I say to my mum, as I say to all of my clients, just assume every interaction with you is people trying to steal your money. Every single text message, every single phone call, every single email, just be massively on the alert that everyone is up to a scam. That's the default position these days. And then obviously you need to navigate the world.
Carl, when you are needing to move money from various bank accounts in your company, and you might get in touch with Paddy or one of the team, and it's that is a huge risk nowadays. If you're not meeting in person to arrange for funds to be transferred with emails and so on, and you're right, your reference to AI is worrying. If you've seen any of these deep fakes that go absolutely clone your voice, I just can you send 50 grand to blah 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 to this account?
Impossible.
No, it's not.
Yeah. No, I hear you. But let's come up with a more realistic kind of scenario, because clearly that would mean we'd have to have a load of money. But I just 100%. One thing that came out of the report, males over 40 were by far the dominant people who have been scammed. And part of it is that males over 40 maybe will be risk takers, but also it seems that they were afraid to ask other people about it because they didn't want to come across as kind of silly. So look, this whole we've spoken about referrals and all that kind of stuff. I said on the radio interview, if I was parting with a lot of money, I want to meet him face to face. And I also acknowledge that might sound like a little bit of a dinosaur view, and that mightn't be okay in 5, 10, 15 years' time. It won't.
I thought that was brilliant. And you hammered home that point as well, which I think is very well.
I would.
So.
And then I want to see your office, and I'm happy to take everything online after I do that. Once I just see it, and once I'm comfortable. This is all real. You couldn't make this stuff up. So anyway, look, sorry, laboured the point a little bit, but important stuff.
Okay, good work. Okay, moving on. So, Cerulli, do you think you pronounce it Cerulli? Cerulli? So it's
Maybe.
a US sort of research company, and I know in the UK we're always talking about the advice gap and trying to get young blood into our profession, and the fact that so many IFAs of a certain age are retiring, and it's quite an aging demographic. Well, this report from the USA, it seems to be more a problem in the USA. Just a quick couple of quotes on the head counts in the US. So in the next 10 years, this report reckons 110,000 US advisors plan to retire, which is 38% of the industry headcount and 42% of the total assets under advice. 42% of total assets under advice. The advisors connected to that money are going to walk in 10 years. Now, that's great for those that stay behind. But the second problem is that in the US, and I don't know quite how they define the word failure, but the rookie failure rate, the rookie advisor failure rate hovers around 72%. So 3/4 of rookie advisors walk away from the industry within a year or two because they just can't hack it. Which is interesting, isn't it? Because I can't imagine, as tough as it can be to break into this thing of ours, I can't believe that we only retain 25% of new advisors.
I read it, Nick. I can't understand that. This isn't rocket science. Hard work and being organised should kind of get you most of the way there. Did it say why? What are the reasons for the
I don't
failures?
think it did. It's not a particularly long article. I don't think I've got my own thing, and I'll come to you in a second, Ultra. Sorry, is that it's still more of a sales culture there with these. What do they call them? These not the Merrill Lynch kind of organisations where you're wirehouses. Yeah, so we've got a lot more target driven. Old school, pick up the phone, that kind of thing, I imagine.
Okay,
Andy.
right.
Nothing really more to add. I mean, the failure rate in the UK for advisors starting out is a handful. If you can't hack it within year one, like every single year you spend in this business, you become slightly better, deal with better clients, take on more clients. So it's like a snowball effect. It's not as if we're opening restaurants and the failure rate's incredibly high. So again,
based on what? What's the data there? Depends on the background. If you're a startup advisor, the failure rate is quite high for direct sales, self-employed financial advisors.
Yes, and I think it must include that. If you want more detail, they don't quote where the thing comes from. The actual underlying report only costs $20,500. So you could probably buy two decent studios for that actually work for online webinars and so forth. I don't know. I'm just projecting here. Who knows anything about these kind of numbers? They're all a myth.
Well, look, if you're going to put some stuff up on Topical Tidbits, try and research it the next time so you have some answers.
Yes, point well made. Okay, moving on. Okay. Oh, by the way, hat tip to that article from a guy called, I wanted to say his name, American guy on LinkedIn. He's a coach to financial planners.
Go on, say his name.
Ermos Arito Crito. And I probably got that. I'm guessing that's Romanian, because that's what Latin.
You've insulted
him. Storyteller, profitability trends.
I thought this was quite interesting. It was in one of the trade mags last week, and the source was direct from FCA year-end reports, RMAR reports. And it referred to the fact that average financial advisor firm profits in the UK shrank in 2023. And it breaks it all down in terms of sizes of firms. But from one advisor, then got a band 2 to 5 advisors, 6 to 50 advisors, and over 50 advisors. And pretty much across the piece, across every band, profits were down in the last year since 2022 rolling into 2023. And the numbers for the advisory firms with over 50 advisors, obviously the big, large nationals and consolidators, are horrific. I mean, they're just making millions and millions of pounds in losses every year. Now, of course, they've got a different business model. Maybe they're private equity backed. Maybe they just accept losses for a period of time and hopefully turn it into profits. But if you're making, the average losses for some of those firms is in the millions. So 3.2 million average pre-tax profit. Loss, because it's in brackets, for larger firms. If you're losing sort of £3 million a year consecutively year after year, then that's likely to be a challenge. But I was really surprised looking at this, because across the board, of course, there's lots of different reasons why this might be, and it's a very small time period, I suppose, 2022 and 2023, and there's lots of other things going on. But profits are down pretty much across the board, both actual pre-tax profits per firm and then retained profits. It goes against what I see, just conversations with you guys and with other advisors that I know who all seem to be doing, certainly anecdotally, pretty well, and growing revenues, growing clients. But any thoughts on that? Did you see the article?
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah. You shared it on another group, didn't you? And staggering. Just, vested interest and everything else. It kind of reaffirms my thing that's small. When I say small, 4 to 5 advisors, maybe 6 advisors max. But the small advice firms just seem to nail it in this thing of ours, and the bigger ones for whatever. I know there's PE costs and everything else. You got to write, and retained profits is such a figure, because that they could have stripped everything out, special dividends. You just don't know, do you? But the way the profit just seems to fall off a cliff once you get to big firms is, and it's been ever thus. It's been ever thus.
So does this mean that, as we've sort of talked about in the past, you can't scale financial planning? I think Carl
I
said that.
Yeah, regulated financial advice, very hard to scale.
Don't think you can scale it.
On a very large scale, you can't do it. I think it's impossible to control. If you have hundreds of advisors out there. What I would say, though, it was a very, very interesting report, and thanks for sharing it. It was, I would say, number one, saying that all the profits are down. It's like, they weren't down by much, but the big firms losing 3 million. I would imagine, this is a guess, a little bit like what Nick was saying. There's lots of things feeding into that, but there might be some write-offs based on the consumer duty rules and that kind of stuff. But I've always said it, on a very large scale, it is really, really difficult to scale financial planning, because you just can't control what service every single client is going to get. There comes a time when it's going to become too difficult. But very interesting stuff.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you. Okay, Ultra, your first topical tidbit of episode 52.
Yeah, there's a couple of moving parts with this. HL Hargreaves Lansdowne, again, they're featuring again on today's show. The Bank of England base rate has gone down from 5.25 to 5%. Cash now returns some value compared to what it has done over the last 15 years or whatnot. I don't know if you saw it, but HL have reduced the cash they pay on platform. And as we know, platforms hold a lot of cash, circa 10, 12, 15% of the assets that they look after. And again, consumer duty is at play here. So HL have slightly reduced their rates that they pay on cash. It's very convoluted. It's all different pots and different amounts here, different amounts there. And in the same week, I got an email from Trading 212, which is another sort of online app. They've reduced their cash rate on platform from 5.2 to 5. So it's still market leading. I checked Transact. Transact is 4.95 of July. I don't know if they're going to nudge it down in August or September. But yeah, consumer duty is definitely having an impact on this, certainly with disclosing it and retaining less of it, I think. And I was just wondering, does any of you know what the DFMs do with cash on platform? Some of the discretionary fund managers, they pay nothing.
They put their children through private education with it. That's what they do.
Via it, okay. Yeah, so that's that really. It's cash now has value. Consumer Duty is very concerned about platforms not retaining too much of this and being fair with their clients. Any thoughts?
Not especially, but something to keep a look. Obviously, the interest rates are probably going to go down, and we've had a golden 2 years for those of us that have got a little bit of cash lying around. Certainly compared to the drought we had from 2008 for 15 odd years, if not more. Okie dokie. Voice. Make this interesting and make it short.
Is this the central bank on cryptocurrency?
Yep.
Yeah. So if you click that link, there's a very short YouTube video. And basically, it's the Central Bank of Ireland saying, watch out for cryptocurrency. They don't obviously go as far as saying it's all a big scam, but it's basically an anti-investing in crypto, very short video. Just thought it was really interesting considering in the US, they've now allowed, crypto ETFs and that kind of stuff. So I wonder, will we be changing our views here in Ireland? But still, it seems that even the regulator is telling people, don't go near it. It's not a proper asset.
What?
It's too
Central
volatile.
bank saying crypto's bad.
Turkeys
don't vote for Christmas.
I thought the central bank put some material out there a couple of months ago, Carl, that you shared, saying quite pro crypto and like things to be aware of, and talked about it as an investment. Is that not right?
No, I can't remember what I did last week, so I can't remember what I said a couple of months ago.
Do you have freedom of information requests in Ireland? You could just write in and ask. The Bank of England, our central bank, holds vast quantities of Bitcoin, just as a matter of interest, as does the Fed in the US.
Right.
I don't know if Ireland does, but that's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
Them actually holding that sort of stuff.
Okay, I've considered in that.
Okay.
Anyway, there you go.
Okay. All right. Moving on. So, BestInvest and their Spot the Dog Fund latest survey has come out. Thanks to Robin Powell for bringing my attention to this on LinkedIn. And there are some absolute dogs, and there always are going to be dogs on there. But some of them, I mean, the top of the list one is so small; it's only got 10 million in it. I mean, that's probably less than the fund manager takes out every year. But the second on the chart is the Baillie Gifford Global Discovery Fund, and £500 million, and that's underperformed its benchmark by 65% over the last 3 years. Now, that sounds like quite a global discovery fund. Who knows what these words actually mean? But it sounds like it's fairly esoteric and specialist. But some of the bigger ones. By size, the SJP Global Quality Fund, that's, I'm sure, brings a grim laugh to investors in the Global Quality Fund, has underperformed its benchmark by 27%.
Wow.
Over 3 years. So £100 invested 3 years ago is worth £106 today. And of course, in real terms, it's worth a hell of a lot less than £100, the original stake. So just on and on it goes. And then you get talking head commentators like, who was the guy that spoke on this one for them?
Robin Powell.
No, Jason Hollands. Jason Hollands.
Yeah.
The reason these funds, and I tweeted it, I shared this on our WhatsApp group. The reason these funds have performed is because they've avoided the Magnificent Seven, the big tech stocks, and so they have, quote, struggled to consistently beat the markets, which is akin to saying that Hiroshima had a slight fire in the downtown section in July 1945. I mean, it's such an understatement. Struggled to consistently beat the markets. These funds are just unbelievable. And I think we're going to come on to SJP, aren't we, in the Polaris fund, which is the Topical.
There are billions, though, added, all these funds added up. It's quite a good thing they do every year. I mean, obviously gets them a lot of press and publicity. BestInvest, create this Spot the Dog. But there's billions of families' wealth tied up in these pretty
the SJP Global one is 11 billion. 11 billion in size. That's a decent fund. It's 3 to 4 times bigger than the second fund on the list. So there we go, and you can you can there'll be a link to that in the so-called show notes. Que sera, in an ideal world, if we weren't human beings, but we were logical, homus economicus, whatever the phrase is, we would invest in those worst performing funds. That's what you should really do now. Not advice for laymen listening to the show. Okay, Wodge, Laya Healthcare. Wow.
Yeah, I mentioned the last day about people, being lethargic about sitting on their deposits and not going into term deposits at the very least, or having a look at maybe other options in terms of where they might put their money as opposed to the pillar banks here. There are a couple of private health insurers here in Ireland, and they seem to be ramping up their premiums just all the time. I just shared a link to the HIA, they'll be in the show notes, which is the Health Insurance Authority, and you can actually compare all the providers, because although Laya Healthcare said that on average they're increasing their premiums by 6.5%, it seems that anecdotally anyway, that people's premiums are going up much more than that. So look, shop around, it is your money after all. So I just thought I'd mention it. That's it.
Good doing your duty to consumers. Thank you, Wodge. I think that's you, Alan, with the small s, so it's as Vanguard competitive. I presume it's AS.
Yeah, this is just, I think this is quite interesting. Now, this is about friends of the podcast, and we all like and enjoy, and probably most of us use them to one degree or another, but Vanguard. Other friend of the podcast, Banker on Wheels, who, as we've highlighted before, it produces a lot of content actually, but does write a very comprehensive and detailed weekly newsletter, I guess you'd say, blog newsletter.
Very good.
Tons of links, tons of research within it, and some really interesting stuff. And so he produced an article in the last edition of the newsletter, just exploring this position that Vanguard seemed to have owned, which is super low cost, the cheapest index tracker funds available. And the reality is, the way that markets have moved over the last couple of years, Vanguard are now, for some funds, I think for their global equity ETF, they're the most expensive of all the tracker funds out there, because they've kept their prices pretty much the same, whilst a lot of others have lowered and lowered prices. Now, we're talking basis points here and there, but I just think it's an interesting dynamic. And they've also lost a significant amount of market share, because a lot of people who are buying index funds, they are really super focused on cost. And if they can get it for a lot lower, half the cost in some cases, than Vanguard are offering it for, then they vote with their feet and they go elsewhere. Nick?
It's a really interesting point, isn't it? Because Vanguard, who we do love, and Bogle, the good he did for people during his lifetime for investors, it literally does run into the billions of dollars. Vanguard are a little bit caught in a rock and a hard place here, aren't they? Because, as you've said, Alan, they've inculcated this whole following that say costs matter. And so this whole following are going, well, you've told us for 50, 40 years costs matter. They do matter, and you're relatively expensive, but they show no desire to want to cut their. I mean, they've kept them. I read that article. They kept those on the ETF. I think it's 22 basis points, and it's been at that level for at least 5 years. I think as other
I don't
people
really understand, because effectively as a sort of quasi form of a mutual company as opposed to a mutual fund, they've got no shareholders, right? And that was one of the advantages. They always say when we scale and grow, and God knows, the volumes of billions and trillions that they accumulate in terms of assets under management over the years, then set against their fixed cost of running the business, they used to make a very, very strong case that we will continue. And it did for many years. They just constantly reduced the fees, but they seem to have paused right now. I don't know. They've had a new CEO come in. They seem to be very, very prominent in promoting active management as well.
They've had the failed experiences in Germany and here with sort of dabbling their hands in the, in quotes, advice sector. And then that would have come at some kind of cost.
That would have cost
millions.
Yeah, no, look, nothing wrong with Vanguard. They're an outstanding business, outstanding company. Yep. But it was interesting. Yep. And it was a friend of mine who's a sort of DIY investor, young guy who's just sort of throwing a lot of money into this as well. And he saw this also. And he just said to me, yeah, we forget Vanguard have got the halo effect. We just always assume that so you never need to look around. And maybe because there's not a lot of things to determine. If you're buying an index fund, What are the criteria for choosing one? Tracking error, maybe, but
Tracking
they're
error
all
and fees,
roughly
really,
the same.
and the name of the brand. I mean, obviously, you've
Name
got
of the
people like
brand.
BlackRock, HSBC, L&G.
But it's cost.
Fidelity.
It really is, as you say. If you set your stall out all about cost, and you're a lot higher, so maybe we'll see some movement. Maybe we'll see some reductions in costs.
What a nice place to be in, though, that we're talking about this when in the quote expensive one is 22 bips compared to what it used to be a few years ago. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, we might go on to something else.
I think the next point might lead into this. Smithy, you want to talk about your big missile?
Yeah, this was also, this is topical tidbits. This was in one of the actual national papers. City AM, I think it's just a national paper, or certainly London in the south. And it was a big article about this, and it was referring to the SJP, St. James's Place, Polaris fund, which...
you underestimate the power of the dark side.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I don't know too much about it, but it seems to me it's gone from nothing. My understanding is that it's a new fund that's been launched and designed to be a little bit lower cost than other funds and alternatives. And I think it aims to have some sort of low cost index funds within it. It is a classic multi-asset type fund, as I understand it. So it is now in the space of a couple of months overtaking the entire Vanguard life strategy portfolio effectively in terms of assets under management. It is now larger than Vanguard life strategy, which took them obviously years and years and years to build up based on that. So most of that, the majority I think, is internal money going from...
Well, that's the point. That is the point.
Funds.
It's a fund of fund, but it's quite a fettered fund of funds, for those who remember those kind of expressions from a few years ago. So,
yeah, and so there are some comparisons with life strategy, but again, we're back to cost. And look, it's not about cost; it is about value. But this fund comes in at about 1.4, 1.5, 1.6% per year. Now, all the SJP people listening will be saying, yes, but that includes advice, absolutely, and includes admin in terms of platform custody costs. Let's just say the aforementioned Vanguard life strategy, which I've always said is as good as anything out there. If you just want to save and accumulate for the next 10, 20, 30 years, choose a life strategy fund and forget about anything else. So that's 22 basis points. This Polaris fund is about 1.6. If you strip out the advice cost, 50 basis points, I believe they charge, strip out admin cost, platform cost, another 20. You're still you're comfortably looking at 3 or 4 times the cost just for the fund management alone. And again, in this world of fine margins, it is pretty punchy to be offering a fund that is a multiple 3 or 4 times another, leading multi-asset type fund. So it made the front page of the finance section of City AM. Interesting.
Okie dokie. And Ultra, bring the pace up with boring CVs.
Yeah, this is just a shout out to younger advisors trying to break into this business. And I don't know how much experience or how often you've come across this. We often get sent a load of CVs from people looking to break into this business. Probably Alan gets maybe more than most of us. And there's just no innovation in it. They send you an email really dead keen to get into this business. They say, I'm young, fresh and innovative. Please find attached my horrendous CV that I built in Word, 1982, and it looks absolutely terrible. There's a cognitive dissonance with this where they're saying they're young, fresh, innovative, want to get involved and, take over the world. And then they attach just a horrendous CV. I'm just saying, put a bit more effort into it. These days, you can build a website literally for about $20, $100. You can get andyhartfinancialadvice.com. I could even have a / Nick Lincoln, Alan Smith. I can do a personalized video. I'm looking to break into this space. So I'm just saying, just up your game if you're a sort of younger person looking to break into this space. Stop creating, terrible CVs that have been built in Word 1982. Add a bit of sort of brightness to it, some pictures, maybe a PDF download with your CV, or even do sort of bespoke videos and build your own website if you're trying to get into this space. I'm pretty sure you get a decent job 10 times quicker if you built your own website and sent that to a few people with a bit of a personalised message. So you don't have to create a horrible CV that looks like you, as I say, built it in 1982. That's it, really. I don't know if anyone else has had experience of this. I mean, Alan, you get CVs every week, don't you?
All the time, which is great, and I really appreciate them. But you're right. I don't want to be too critical, but I haven't seen any innovation as you've described. You get a nice message and maybe a CV, but nothing. We have talked about this before, and I've just talked about if you really. Here's the thing. I believe there's loads and loads of really smart young financial planners in this country, and I know for certain, having spoken to dozens of them since we started TRAP and before that as well, that they're not in the ideal place in terms of where they're working. They've got sort of limits and structures and companies that don't really do proper financial planning, and their sort of directors or the bosses in their firms aren't going to change anytime soon, and they still use really expensive active managers or outsourced to discretionaries. So they're looking, and most people now have got a good sense of what a good financial planning business looks like and what the practices are, the sort of services they deliver. But here's the thing, there's not that many. There's not an unlimited number of really excellent world-class financial planning firms in the UK. So where there's a sort of supply-demand equation, i.e. there's dozens and dozens and dozens, young, smart financial planners looking for a very limited number of roles which are available in good firms. My God, you've got to do your best to stand out. You really got, and you're right. And most of these people, I mean, obviously I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to technology, but you could sort of knock up a pretty easy. I mean, I've seen that, for example, that website builder Card. Seen that? CARRD, I think it is. Even I could build a one-page website in that. Load up some stuff, include it, send it, and then I remember we talked about this before. And imagine that you had spent a bit of time looking at a director or the owner or whatever, post on LinkedIn or their own blogs or something, and you showed that you were really interested in that business. Maybe you suggested, look, I've got an idea, I've got a suggestion. You immediately stand out. It doesn't take that much to raise above mediocrity. And I think it's an absolutely fair comment, Andy. The people should do it. Invest. God, this is going to determine the trajectory of the next 10 years plus of your career, and make it impossible for someone like me or all the other great firms out there who are always open. We're currently not hiring, but my God, if somebody just blew us away with their kind of thoughtfulness and approach, you'd find a way of hiring them. Yeah, that's the thing. But
I don't know why there's been no innovation in CV. Somebody said to me it's because the online job boards need to read the CV and it needs to be black and white. Who gives a shit about that? You're trying to stand out to businesses that inspire you and you want to work for. So you can have two CVs: the crappy one for the job board and the beautifully designed website that's going to take you a couple of hours and cost you $100. Online with a personalised link to the person.
You don't want to be in a job board anyway. You just don't really want to be on it.
I'm just saying that's the reason why CVs have not moved on with the rest of technology. Everything else has got beautiful, faster, slicker, visually appealing.
How easy is it to create a short Loom video or something?
So
really
so quick,
detailed and done your research.
All software there's free. Just if you're looking for a job, please up your game. Stop sending horrendously old CVs to people.
And if you need help, contact Andy. He'd be delighted to help all of
Ultra's man. Ultra.
If I was looking for a job now, I'd do stuff to stand out. I was still caught in the old create a crap CV, say I work well in teams and just wasting people's time. But at least I picked up the phone and called them. At least I picked up the phone and called them and went for a coffee. These days, it's just LinkedIn messages and another email. Massively needy email straight cold off. I don't even know you from anywhere.
It's worse, direct message in LinkedIn.
Asking for a lot of stuff and how do you do this, and can you email me your investment policy statement, and can you send me these documents? I don't even know you. Like I've got a busy day, and you want to spend half an hour from your cold LinkedIn message. Anyway, that's that. It's a bit of a sort of what's it called? A bit of a public service announcement. Up your game, people. If you're looking
from the
for a
four
job.
dinosaurs. Right, Nick, move on.
Okay, no, I think that's a good point. I mean, credit to people who do send their CVs in anyway, no matter how naff they are. At least that's something, isn't it? Just to send rather than go through perhaps the more traditional routes, but do make them, try and make them different, whether it's digital or a printed version. Okay, right. This is another one from the US. A couple of interesting things here in terms of what we do. This is a Wall Street Journal article, and the link in the so-called show notes, I have shared it, and you can get one open link a week, I think, so you should be able to open it if you want to read it. It's just a horror story of Gen X. Andy loves the siling of people into certain things. Apparently, that's if you're born between 1965 and 1980, so I am a Gen Xer. They're running out of money. They haven't got enough money saved in their 401ks. And for the younger UK advisors who are maybe not totally savvy with US tax wrappers, I'm not saying I am, but I think I have got a rough approximation of what they do. The American 401k is like our personal pension plan, defined contribution pension pots. The American IRA is similar to our GIA, and the Roth IRA is similar to our ISA. Anyway, in their 401ks, in this article, they speak to a couple of saddos who are basically one's 54 and has got no money in his 401k because over the years, he's been saving into it for 3 decades. But in America, you're allowed to cash it out, to encash your personal pension plan before an age such as 65, 66, whatever it normally is, which to me just sounds that's just inviting trouble. So I imagine millions of Americans have done that. He's done it here for a home repair or moving costs. Just cash in your pension, no problem. And also, the second thing that's in this article is the behavioural thing, the thing that we're all very hot on. This guy also said that keeping the money invested in the stock market didn't seem worth it after witnessing crashes like the bursting of the .com bubble. I mean, it's just tragedy rewriting itself continually. And even a guy here who's got money, him and his wife have got money in their 401ks. When the stock market crashed in 2020 at the onset of the COVID pandemic, the Wuhan lab leak bedwetting, he and his wife pulled the money in his wife's 401k out of the market and into a money market fund. Now they have reinvested the money, but put a greater proportion of it into bonds than before. So, que sera, sera. If you don't think there's a need for behavioural investment counsellors, I think you're wrong. And I think these people in this article would have been saved with an empathetic counsellor on their shoulder.
Did you see there was an article I saw over the weekend? Hargreaves Lansdown seems to be getting a lot of airplay with us this week. Did a survey, pretty small sample set. They asked 500 clients, Hargreaves Lansdown, about pension regrets, people who had reached retirement age and pension regrets. And I don't know, somebody posted that on Twitter, and our friend David, what's his name? Hearn. He's I think really, really focused on the pension market, and he commented on it. And then all the comments under that, the amount of people just, Joe Public, just saying pensions are a rip-off, the biggest Ponzi scheme ever, never do it, complete waste of money, you always lose your money. And it's just, oh my God, so what are you going to do then? What are you going to do?
That's what we're fighting against all the time, this wall of ignorance.
It's the biggest financial mistake I see, people not understanding pensions until it's too late. I can't hammer home that enough.
Quite an interesting one. See that, the top 5 regrets of pensioners.
Do you know what the penalty is in the US, Nick, for taking the money out early?
No, they don't mention
like
that. There must be tax
like
consequences.
Or something. It must be punchy.
Just the fact you can do it, that seems to be inviting trouble. But just, if you listen again, if you are Joe Public, listen to this Civvy Street, and this is not advice, but and the Trap Pack en masse will endorse this. Pensions have never been as good value as they are now compared to what they used to be 10, 20, 30 years ago. They are transparent, and you can do so much with them in terms of intergeneral wealth planning that if you have an advisor, he or she hopefully is helping you see the light on pensions. They are not your dad's pension. They're not your mum's pension. It's a completely different world we live in, and embrace them. I would suggest having done a full financial plan and read the key features and key facts documents. Otherwise, you may well get struck down by lightning. Okay, we're on to the final topic. This is the dog days of summer, and we still managed to knock a good one out today. We're at 44 minutes in. The final topical tidbit is on AI. There's no attribution to it. I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark and say it's storyteller.
Carl, surely it's you, Carl. This will take 30 seconds. I just want to do a brief shout out to another financial services, UK financial planning focused AI startup business. and I forgot the name of it. What did I write down, Nick?
Posterity.
Posterity, not prosperity.
Oh, prosperity, sorry.
They'll be thrilled with this show.
No, it's posterity. Right, so the website, posterity.finance. I spoke to, I love startup entrepreneurship, people giving it a go.
Absolute shambles.
This is just a bright young guy, a couple of guys, I think, who are founders. Look, there's dozens of these companies in every sector, every industry, across whatever, the medical profession, the legal profession, and of course the financial services profession. And this is another one. 99% of them won't make it, probably. But, good luck to them for trying. And I just had a brief demo of the tools that they've got, and they're building something designed for financial advisors. So if anyone's interested, they are in business now, looking for people to subscribe and get a free trial. So check out that website link, which is in the show notes, and good luck to them.
I think seconds are longer in the UK than they are here. Anyway, go for it.
Indeed. Okay. Right. We are at 46 minutes in. So let's, without hesitation, move on to the meat and potatoes of episode 52 of the Real Advisor podcast, TRAP Trap. And this one is about the inspirations that have shaped and molded us so that you end up seeing these four, or listening to these four fantastic fellows on the Real Advisor podcast. What got us here? What people, what mentors do we have in different facets of life? And as ever with Trap, because we're unashamedly just disorganized and chaotic, we haven't really discussed who's going first on this, have we? So I'm going to leave the mic open and someone can leap in.
I think it's you, Nick.
It was your idea, Nick, wasn't it?
No, Carl. Nice try. Next.
Oh, Carl.
Well, I think it was a bit of a mix.
Okie dokie. I'll go. Okay. So I have a very long list here, so I don't know how much or little of it I will go through. But I just thought when I was embarking on the journey going from product seller to what's this financial planning thing and where can I do my research and who are the people that kind of influence that journey? Now, it's fair to say I actually had to go and search for one or two of them. So I haven't followed them, for a couple of years, but I'll just throw some names out there. I know we will disagree on some names. Some you mightn't have even heard of. But one firm, and I had to go searching for them because I couldn't even remember their name last night, Monument Wealth Management in the States. And if you go and look at them, they are a relatively small, kind of, I think, a team of maybe 10, 12 people. They're doing financial planning and they're a little bit quirky. And they're not afraid. Well, now they're not afraid to say, oh, well, we're not for everybody and that kind of stuff. But I used to follow them. I used to write notes based on some of the videos they used to share. I would say our office has been designed a little bit like what their kind of whole thing was. I remember him drawing out what a financial plan was, and I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. So big shout out to Monument Wealth Management. They have no idea how much they actually inspired me and influenced me. So that's certainly a firm. There's probably hundreds of firms like that you could look at. But I suppose the point was I was looking outside of our market here because I was feeling this isn't the way to do it. So I was looking towards the States. So then a couple of other names from the States. And I know we're going to disagree on a few of these, but Michael Kitces. I used to absolutely devour all of his podcasts. I used to read a lot of his weekend notes and that kind of stuff. Honestly, I probably very rarely listen to much or any of it now. But when I was embarking on the journey, I was just up because a lot of the interviews are from practitioners. So I was like, just, okay, give me more, give me more, give me more. A couple of other names, Steve Sandusky. I used to listen to his podcast an awful lot. Brad Johnson, who I've mentioned a good few times before, and Mitch Anthony. So they're names that I would have followed from the States. I will say his name has already come up today. Robin Powell. I was trying to figure out, this active management piece and the passive and whatever. And I came across Robin, and I thought it was really, really brilliant stuff in terms of the evidence he was coming up with. So this evidence-based strategy to investing. And again, like all the other names that I mentioned earlier on, I would say he had a significant impact as to how the Metas Ireland Investment House view came about. So hat tip to Robin there. I have more stuff, right, in terms of maybe stuff outside necessarily financial planning. But will I take a pause there? Maybe we go around, do a few, and then come back, or how do we want to do it?
Yeah, that break up of the tone would be nice. Thanks, Carl.
Yeah. Okay. So who's next? Who's influenced you from a financial planning point of view?
Shall I go? Actually, I've actually got a couple of names now. I did have to think about this. And it is. When I say this chap's name, you're going to think it's a cliche to say it, and some of you are going to just not be happy with the name because he's a Marmite figure. But there's, without a shadow of a doubt, I do think that Paul Armisen in the round has been an enormous force for good in UK financial services. And I've talked about it before, how I went to a seminar in 2008. I paid to go in 2008 to a seminar, pre-RDR, and he blew me away. He did the bucket. He lightly pushed truth at the end, but he did the bucket and talked about lifestyle financial planning. And it was a light switch going on in the Lincoln cranium. Happens once every 2 decades or so. This was the time it went on. And I left that meeting and thought, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I would want done for me. And that's what I'm going to do for people. And I went back to my existing IFA firm, who I got on with very well. I still get on with very well, the ex-directors, and said, I want to do this. And they said, that's fine. You're not doing it with us. And I said, that's even better because I don't do it with you. And I went out on my own. So I am an awful lot of good. And I think a lot of people in the industry, in the profession. So no, he was one of the instigators in turning this thing of ours from an industry into a profession. There's still a long way to go, but my God, we've come an awful long way. Awful lot of time for Paul Armisen. Yes, he rubs people up the wrong way, but I think generally you want that. You don't, as Andy would say, when you don't want a 5 out of 10 review, you want the 10 out of 10 ideally, but the odd 1 out of 10 is fine as well, because you can't be everything to everyone. And Paul Armisen embraces that enormous force for good. Second person in this thing of ours is the American guy, Peter Maluk, who he's a very good interviewee. When you listen to him, he's always got good content and stuff, and he seems to run just really good American firm. I mean, I'm probably talking you up now, and there'll be some massive scandal, but he has managed this thing of scaling while preserving a central ethos that seems to cascade out amongst all his RIAs, as they're called over there, and his teams. And just an engaging guy and very driven, and didn't come into financial services from university or anything. Kind of had a circuitous route. Always worth listening to. So I like Peter Maluk. So those are my 2 financial services inspirations.
Okay. I'll go. Obviously this question, we were scratching around, full disclosure, yesterday, trying to work out what to talk about, meat and potatoes. So
Speak for yourself.
Thank you, Carl, for coming up with this. And I guess we can all interpret the subject slightly differently. It's who has influenced us over the years, business-wise predominantly, but maybe also personally. And the way that I interpreted it was not so much someone who writes a good blog necessarily, but somebody that had a material impact on the way I've operated in business, and maybe actually took a significant detour to what we were doing before as a result of engaging with this person or people. So that's the way I sort of reflected back on my business journey. And I'm going to share a handful of names with you that are pretty much all still around one way or another, doing different things and doing good work. The first person that I want to highlight is the Australian guy called Brett Davidson. I just spoke to him I spoke to him on Friday last week. I had a good chat with him. But Brett, I think I was one of his first, I know because he told me, I was one of his first clients. He came to the UK 20 years ago and I set up 20 years ago. And he was sort of promoting this idea of building the idea of running a practice, a proper business, as opposed to being a pension advisor or something. So I engaged with Brett. Brett was brilliant. And Brett actually came in to our office and spent a ton of time just all the various, what is your proposition? How do you describe it? None of us ever had this thing called a proposition. It was just, I don't know, I meet a client, I recommend a savings plan or whatever it might be. So, and a load of things that Brett did. As I say, he spent days and days with us and my team over the years, and really created the foundations of the business. When we completed that work, this leads me to person number 2. When we completed the work, Brett says, you've now got a fantastic business. It's in really good shape. The only thing that I see is missing from your business is your investment proposition is weak. And I think he said it was effing weak, because Brett doesn't mince his words. And so he said, there is, that is because I think, as has been documented on this podcast in the past, we were just, doing a lot, active managers outsourcing to various so-called experts, discretionary managers, and so on. And Brett just said, that's not very good. There are better things. So Brett in turn introduced me to my second person, whose name is Tim Hale. Now, Tim was then a one-man band running an independent consulting firm called Albion Strategic Consulting. And Tim came in and spent the thick end of a year with us, obviously not all together, but a day here and a day there. And from the ground up, built our entire investment proposition, collaboratively with me and my team. And that, again, was so material to do that. That, again, completely changed the direction of our business. And just a quick shout out to Tim. Tim is now going through he's kind of, I don't know, he might not want me to say semi-retiring, but there's a sort of team management buyout with his bright young things that he's got working with him right now. And I wish Tim all the best for the future. The third person, when it comes to business terms, is, do you guys know, actually spoke at the Timeline thing recently, Gino Wickman. Gino Wickman wrote a series of books, but his original book's called Traction. And if anyone is listening to this who runs a financial planning practice, or is a practice manager, or an advisor, or a senior power planner, and if you haven't read that book, you must read the book. The book is called Traction. It's by Gino Wickman. It creates systems, processes, models. Not a financial services book at all, but it kind of is the template of how to run a small business. And it's brilliant. And that was a different thing that we implemented and adopted. Okay. Probably the last one I'll say for now, as it relates to this is predominantly business, but there's another Aussie, ironically, called Daniel Priestley, who again may be well known. He's kind of reasonably active in quite a few financial planners have engaged with his content. I went through his Key Person of Influence program just before COVID, so 2019. And it was just outstanding. And Daniel Priestley just produces so much good content. Again, not financial services, but creative stuff about how to become a key person of influence, how to raise your game, how to win new business, how to create a really strong and growing business. And so I strongly recommend anyone checks out Daniel Priestley and all the content he puts out on YouTube, LinkedIn, etc. So those are all the people that sort of combined really made an impact to the direction of travel that we undertook within our business. Over to Andy.
Cool. I'll throw a few names into the hat. It's a bit of a random, meandering list, so I'll do a quick run through. I suppose the undercurrent theme is anyone who's seeking excellence, regardless of what industry or profession they're in. I'm sort of attracted to those sort of characters. So first up is Rory Sutherland, who those of you probably know. His most famous book is called Alchemy. I've listened to it a few times, read it a few times. It's amazing. All around the sort of hidden magic around sort of behavioral marketing and the weird and wacky things we come across in life. I've consumed hours and hours of Rory's content. I'm pretty sure Alan has and Nick has. I don't know how much Carl's consumed, but it's definitely worth listening to. He's an interesting podcast guest. You can ask him one question and 45 minutes later, question number 2 might be asked. But the stories the guy has off the top of his head is pretty staggering. Next up is an American author called Seth Godin. I am massively indebted to this guy for all the books that he's written. I think he's written about 20 different books. The main ones that I've read that gave me a kick up the arse at the right time: The Dip, Tribe, Linchpin, Purple Cow, The Icarus Deception. They're all decent books. I recommend you check them out. Certainly if you want to build sort of brands within whatever industry and profession you're in. Next name is related to financial planning. My only one really on the list that directly is, and it's Nick Murray, who's, I think he's about 80, 81 now, lives in Brooklyn, New York, 25 years as an advisor, 35 years as an advisor to financial advisors. Again, he's taught me about seeking excellence in the financial advice profession. A massive fan of global equities being the sort of main wealth creation vehicle. He's also a wordsmith, so every month he produces the Nick Murray newsletter, 8 pages of pure wisdom. He's had the biggest impact on me professionally. I've gone to see him, I think, 3 times in America on his conference in October. Since I've had kids, I haven't been able to go, but when they're a bit older, I'll be making the pilgrimage back out there. So they're my sort of 3, start for 3. Back to you, Carl, for any other names on your list.
Yeah, so look, all good. Like I would say, if you're kind of starting out, go and dip into any or all of these names and see what kind of suits your,
good point.
what suits with the style, the content, all of that kind of stuff, yourself. I will say I was never meet your heroes, as they say. So I met you boys in 2018. I thought you were all like, oh my God, I am meeting these titans of financial planning. I don't think that anymore. But anyway, but genuinely, and that was a large part of the attraction of when Andy asked me to speak at home, that I said, yeah, I'll get to meet all these great people. So look, I suppose the lesson there is do put yourself out there and, do try and meet these people and see what you can glean from them.
I was waiting for the punchline there. You're actually being sincere.
No, but it would be...
Here we go.
Cynic.
No, it would be insincere to say that what we do at Metas hasn't been heavily influenced by the discussions we have. The fact that we all hit it off when we clicked and that we set up that WhatsApp group. We must be 6 years into the WhatsApp group, and it's mostly absolutely crap. But
Don't
there's
mention the WhatsApp group.
Yeah, but
Do not mention
but there are things there that are like gold nuggets and that I have definitely implemented at Metas. In terms of conferences, financial conferences, right? Andy's going to kill me for this, but I went and saw the Riskalyze conference. I think they're called Nitrogen now, right? But in terms of making stuff interesting, sexy, all that kind of stuff, go and see a conference in the States, right? Because they just do it so differently to what we're used to here. And I would ask everybody putting on conferences in Ireland and the UK, will you please go over and have a look? Because that's the kind of stuff that will engage us, will get us to go. And we don't mind. And we don't mind paying. We do not mind paying for great content. We really don't.
We've loosely spoken about getting together and going to America, going to one of the big fancy conferences in Disneyland or whatever. And they are amazing. I've seen them online there for days and days and days.
What's the one Josh Brown does?
The interesting thing, the only US conference I've gone to is Nick Murray's, and it's the opposite of the Razzmatazz conferences in America.
Yeah.
You meet at 6:30 in the morning. He gives you a sandwich in a bag for lunch. He stops talking at 2 p.m. You leave and don't say a word. It's like Nick Lincoln putting on a conference. Anyway. So I've seen the opposite end of the Razzmatazz in the US, and I've paid handsomely for it. But yeah,
I'll take that.
But I would say, that's it's worth doing. So just take yourself basically out of your own little bubble and what you're used to, and go pay for it. Go on your own and go and talk to other people, and just widen your horizons, because it will open your mind and you will meet other people. I have a client advisory panel that I've spoken about before, and they inspire me all of the time. They do dictate as to, broadly speaking, how we kind of proceed here at Metas. And we've often said this, not all of the client advisory panel are friends of mine now, and I can, for various reasons or things that crop up, there are numbers I can ring, and I'm very, very, very appreciative of that. The Munster High Performance Leadership course that I did, and again, this was something I paid for when I probably couldn't afford it, but it was all about, it was a cross section of different topics over 3 days. Do please take the time to try and make yourself, a better professional, better in your personal life. Just try and have that personal growth thing in you that you always desire to be better, a better version of yourself. Mel Robbins, Nick, you would love Mel. So I left Instagram a few years ago, and there was only one account when I left Instagram. I never regretted leaving Instagram, but I missed Mel Robbins, but she's cropped up now recently on LinkedIn. And I get inspired by her stuff almost every single time I see her cropping up, and her content is relentless. And a great podcast she brought out actually this week, which was funny but had kind of life lessons in it. And then I'll finish with this: 4 books. I was going to say I've only read
read 4 books.
No. I've only listened to or read 2 books more than once. That's not true, because that Alan
Atomic
Carr.
Habits.
That is one, but the giving up smoking one, I've listened to that about 10 times. Doesn't.
It's not. Is it working? I'm not saying.
It does not
How'd that work out?
Don't bother. Anyway, so Atomic Habits, James Clear. I just think it is the one, right? But if you, a little bit like Gino Wickman and the Traction book, which I have read, but I think a better version of that, in my opinion, and that's why you got to dip in and out of all of these, is Cameron Harold, Vivid Vision. And I'd say I've listened to that 5 times, and it's a really short one. And if you just keep on keeping on with that, it's that's a really, really good place to start. And then just in terms of inspiring, or books that inspired me and went, yeah, I can do this. James Caan, the Dragon's Den fella, he's got a book called The Real Deal. That guy started from nothing and went through all of the phases of business and entrepreneurship. And that book came to me right at the right time when Metas was beginning to kind of take off. And then if you just want an inspiring book that is a really, really brilliant story, Shoe Dog, Phil Knight, absolutely loved it. I had more names on my list. I've scratched them out because I could be talking all day. But so for me, that's my inspiration. Now, if anybody didn't catch exactly all the names, well, pause, go back and slow it down. So please don't send me a LinkedIn message asking me for the books.
Yeah, we can't put dear Trappists, we can't put links to all these in the so-called show notes, because there's a limit to how much the show notes are actually captured. And they'll just say, just to listen to this. You'd have heard of most of these names. Carl, thank you very much for your contribution. I'll just round out mine by going a little bit more esoteric. A couple of people that I really admire, especially in these sort of troubling times, are Douglas Murray, a brilliant British writer, a brilliant interviewee again, extremely lucid, and also very waspishly funny, often about very dark things. But he has been writing for the best part of 10 years on what he thought would be happening to us in the UK and Japan and Ireland, and it is all pretty much going the way that he said it would. But he still managed to be uplifting when you listen to him. And then in a similar vein, Jordan Peterson, who I think is just a refreshing, a guy who saw the academy failing 10 years or so ago and said, I can't work in this environment, left it. And he can be sometimes a bit verbose. He can sometimes, for my personal taste, be a little bit heavy on the theology and so forth, but nevertheless, a compelling guy when you listen to him. And the Kathy Newman interview, I still watch it now and again, a masterclass in how not to lose your cool, how to remain composed in an atmosphere where everything is stacked against you. In terms of creators and so forth, I really did. I want to be positive. I want to give kudos to financial journalism and the sort of dying legacy media. I found it really hard. There is one journalist who I think is really good, a lady called Merrin Somerset Webb. She now writes, I believe, for Bloomberg, and she's generally spot on whenever she writes about anything. So that's good. In terms of podcasts,
Nick, is she not the lady that's been saying don't buy property for the last 20 years? So I don't think she's spot on everything.
She's probably saying you can't buy property for the last 20 years. Most people can't buy it. It's a moot question.
I think she's been rented for forever, hoping on a property crash, but cool.
Okay, fine. It'll come. And the All In podcast is the podcast that we all like and enjoy, which just about gets the blend of politics and other stuff and science and tech. And they're all forward competing personalities. And Andrew Gold, who does the Heretics podcast, young guy in his 20s, I guess, very interesting, very nice style, and he gets all kind of people on. So I listen to that. And in terms of sort of writers and creators and storyteller mentioned Banker on Wheels earlier, I would definitely suggest you subscribe to that. And that is stuff that can be read and enjoyed by those in this thing of ours and Joe Public and Civvy Street, as is the Moneyvator blog as well, which is on there, which is very much a UK one. They're sources that I like and I trust. And just closing on this, there are also people in the financial services media who seem to get a lot of kudos, who I think are pretty not great. I don't understand the passion for Batnick and Brown. To me, they're just two blowhards. They just cannot interview for toffee. They want to talk all the time and talk over themselves. Ali Hussein at the Times, I don't think really helps anybody. And Paul Lewis, I think he's quite a nice person. I think his views are insane. And sometimes he comes out with some real tripe. So there you go. Just pick and choose. And don't, it's like if you're reading a book and you don't enjoy it, throw the book away and crack on with the next one. If you've got a podcast, a blog or something, you're thinking, this isn't for me, dump it and go. There's plenty out there. You've just got to, as in life, the more you say no, generally, the happier you are. I'm never happier than when I'm saying no. So those are some of my inspirations.
Smithy, any more? Oh, okay, I've got a couple of final names to mention. The next two are actually chefs, weirdly. The first one is Alan Yao, who you might not have heard of. And the next one is Gordon Ramsay. I think the chefs are quite interesting because you can see their work, their excellence in practice, as in you can experience going and eating their food in the environment of the restaurant. So Alan Yao is the founder of Wagamama's and also Busa Bar. There is sort of mass chains, but he's also the founder of Hakkasan, which is one of the only Chinese restaurants in London that's got a Michelin star. Super fan of him. He builds and creates brands. He's also got Park Chinois. Anyway, that's Alan Yao. Gordon Ramsay, you know very well, I'm assuming. He's, again, elegant simplicity. His business ethic is pretty relentless. Again, he's seeking excellence, doesn't suffer fools, knows the restaurant business inside out, knows all the cuisine inside out. Huge fan of him. And then finally, within our business is Pete Matthew. Massive shout out and congratulations to him. He's been the leading light when it comes to financial advisors creating content. He's based in the arse end of nowhere, Penzance in Cornwall. Thank God for the internet for him. He's been able to build a fabulous business and also an amazing content business via meaningful money. A couple of podcast recommendations. The ones that I've probably listened to the most over the years is Freakonomics. Hundreds and hundreds of episodes out there, all about stories and human misbehavior and interesting quirks around, the chinks in the human brain. So Freakonomics, I recommend the podcast. I've read the book and I've read Super Freakonomics as well. They're really good. And then a narrative podcast that I've learned a lot from is called Radio Lab. I think it's one of the original podcasts, sort of radio station in the US. And my final thing is I call this like the biggest kept secret in business. It's an organization called Toastmasters that I went through their program. They've got a business leadership program, a public speaking program. If anyone is looking to get better at public speaking, go through all the sort of stages of leadership, they do different chapters all around the country. There's probably 500 chapters in the UK. You type in toastmasters.org or whatever it is, and then you find a local chapter. And then you go along, I think it's like every other week or every month or something, and you go through different stages of putting different talks together. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I can't promote it enough. So if you're early in your business career, a lot of people that become very famous public speakers and public speaking coaches, 99% of them have gone through the Toastmasters program, but not a lot of them promote it. So as I say, it's the biggest kept secret in business. So Toastmasters is amazing. It's a worldwide organization, Toastmasters. I think the likes of Warren Buffett and who's the Hill guy that wrote Think and Grow Rich, I think they're all quite big fans of it. Anyway,
Napoleon.
So that's that really.
Okay, Alan was doing a full-on Lincoln there and sort of rolling his eyes and throwing his head back. You do have one more, Alan. Tim Ferriss?
Yeah, I've obviously misunderstood the brief here. I thought there was just a handful of really strong influencers. Not a list of every podcast I've ever listened to. So the only other one I'll throw in that he's well known.
He doesn't want to be left out, Z. Go on, you can throw in a few, mate.
I've got one, not 50.
Not my idea, so I'm not engaging.
I think one of the biggest podcasters in the world, Tim Ferriss, because he also influenced me, and he's one of the very few newsletters that I read it pretty much every week. But Tim Ferriss's original books, when I first read it, the 4-Hour Work Week, for example, just mind-blowing. Just really, really smart. And what I love about Tim Ferriss is he experiments with everything, whether it's health, fitness, business. I think he experiments on himself, uses himself as a guinea pig, and then shares all the stories. And he's still doing it now. So I still pretty much, and the amount of interesting people he gets on his podcast, that's obviously not breakthrough stuff. It's a huge and very famous podcast, but it's definitely one worth checking out. And also reading his books. He's got about 4 of them now, I think. That's me. Thank you. God, we're finished. Are we finished? Carl, good. Any more?
Isn't it? Jumpers for goalposts, marvellous. Okie dokie. So let's Okay, that's it. Well, the point I think is that in this digital age, there's so much stuff out there. You can go and find your guru or gurus or restaurant owners with Michelin stars. Okay, I think coming up the driveway is Posty hauling the bulging sack of TRAPist questions. There goes the Nest doorbell. Let's see what questions the TRAPists have sent in. If you want to send a question into the Trap Pack, dear TRAPist, you just have to go to the pinned tweet on X, the pinned X on Twitter, whatever, however you want to say it. And or in the so-called show notes, there's a link there. They go into our special hopper, which resides just outside a farm in Norfolk. And once a week, I drive up to the farm, pull the letters out, give them to Posty. She sends them back to me. It's very convoluted. There must be a way of doing it. Anyway, this week, who do we have? I don't know what I'm rambling on about here. I'm just off on one, aren't I? I need my vitamin D. Let's see who the first question is from. This is from Russ M, who doesn't have a social handle. Russ M says, this one is for Alan. Have you considered a self-employed AR/RI proposition for all those job applications you've had? Could there be a new network following your investment planning philosophy? 2 questions there.
The answer to the first question is quite simple. No. We've never had anyone self-employed in the organization. I've got a fundamental dislike of that setup. No great business I'm ever aware of in any industry was ever built on a team of hired guns, self-employed people that kind of do their own thing and use core services, whether in our business, whether it's compliance or other stuff.
Uber.
Okay. So apart from Uber, that's all right. That's entirely a different model. Or let's talk about the. Look, in our case, what's really, really important is the values of the organization. Mm-hmm. It's what we stand for, what we do, and it's very, very difficult to have that when you've got hired guns on the outside. And so the answer to the question is no. And God forbid that, as part of the second part, create an AR appointed representative, people that could plug into our investment proposition or whatever. No, I mean, it's just, you can see by the data we shared earlier on about, large firms and just not profitable. I mean, there's a phrase, herding cats. Imagine you had 10, 20, 50 self-employed advisors and just that were using your investment proposition. It's bad enough with a small team of employed people who all have their own version of doing things. So no, I've never embraced a self-employed model and are unlikely ever to do so. Carl, you don't do self-employed, do you, at Metis?
No, and I couldn't agree with you more for all the reasons you pointed out. Not for me at all.
Big boy bum chums here. Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Well, Russ M, I think that answers your question. Carl and Alan were quite categorical on that. We have got a second question, and I'll just read it out because it's not really a question. It's more just a comment and a kind of semi-review. So we might as well get this done from Ollie L. Doesn't have a social handle. Could be my brother. Hello, Trap Pack. Reasonably fresh to the profession, not industry. 2 years as an IFA. Thanks for the pod. It's always an informative and enjoyable listen and often reaffirms for me why the job is so important. Have been laid off after my little fish company was eaten by a bigger one. This has knocked my confidence somewhat, and while I'm job hunting, this is keeping my head in the game. Many thanks, Ollie. P.S. Met Andy and Nick at Hum 2023. Both were very kind and generous with their time. Yes, even Nick. Thank you for that, Ollie, and keep fighting the fight, my friend. It will all turn around in due course. These things happen. Okay, we are now at, nearly 80 minutes into the show. So I think without any further ado, if you guys are okay, we will move on to Culture Corner.
Alan.
Oh, let him hang!
You want me to go first? Nothing to do with financial services. Fantastic interview. So the other day, Tucker Carlson, who may or may not be known to the audience, big US media board now, like so many media people historically, has left the traditional, as Nick would refer to it, legacy media, mainstream media. I think
MSN.
Fox before,
Fox.
one of the big channels. Apparently got sacked, so he's created his own media company, media channel, and he does interview some pretty interesting people. on his Tuckercast. So you can go to tuckercarlson.com, but it's on YouTube. But he interviewed, and I've heard about these people before. There's a brother and sister called...
Who's tapping? Who's tapping away? Is your phone making a tapping sound, Carl? I know you're paying full attention to the show.
Perhaps.
He's not clicking his pen, is he? Come on, he's talking.
Right. The interview Tucker Carlson has with somebody called Callie Means, Means, and it's a brother and sister, and it's really all about, it's a deep dive on the food industry, big food and big pharma. And it is so, I mean, and this is just data driven. The sister is a acclaimed physician. She was a doctor. She was top of her class at Stanford. And the brother is Harvard Business School educated. So these are super smart people and have chosen to give it up and sort of just challenge this conventional thinking that exists within this huge, just monolithic, multi-billion, trillion sort of pound industry. Obviously, they refer to the US, what goes on, but it also applies over here. And it's very revealing. There's lots of implications. You could say the same sort of thing applies in maybe financial services, maybe hopefully not to the same degree. But if you want to have a healthy life, if you've got kids and you want them to, enjoy health and eat good food and so on, it's about 2 hours long. And I think it's one of the best podcast interviews I've seen in a very, very long time. So check it out.
I think that Culture Corner's topped the IKEA wardrobe. So thank you for that, Alan. Back to you, Nick.
Okay, fine. Well, we know.
Quick question: Does Tucker Carlson now have a podcast of his own? Is that how he's putting out his media?
He does.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. I've 3 quick mentions, right? I know that I'm not supposed to do it, but I just want to endorse massively Culture Corner from the last time. Please do listen to or read Tuesdays with Maury, which Nick recommended the last day. Absolutely brilliant. Second one, I think Alan did mention this before, The Dropout, which is the Theranos story with Elizabeth Holmes. There's 8 episodes to it. Absolutely amazing. If you want to know how sophisticated scammers work, have a look at Theranos or the Bernie Madoff story either. But I've consumed a lot of podcasts recently, and I'm just going to send everybody to the Bulletproof Entrepreneur with Alan Smith, the podcast you did, Alan, with Liz Hopkins. One of the best I have heard in terms of entrepreneurial stories, and keep on keeping on. She keeps saying that, right? It's an inspiring story. You were brilliant in how you let her tell her story, but she's obviously a very engaging person. She says herself she's a people person. She told the story so brilliantly, so honestly. Please, everyone, if you're in business at all, but it's the types of clients that we are all dealing with, or at least trying to deal with, just a brilliant story about an entrepreneurial journey that was not without its major challenges. So well done, Alan.
Thanks,
really
Carl.
fantastic.
Appreciate it. Cheers.
Great stuff. I am currently reading a book, so I will do the decent thing and not talk about it too much. It's The Price of Tomorrow, recommended by Smithy a few shows ago by Jeff Booth. I haven't got a chance to review it because I haven't finished it. That's the way we do it here.
I'm halfway through it as well. It's really, really good. Decent.
Carl
Anyway.
didn't like it.
No, I didn't like it. No,
It's
hard work.
It's definitely
man.
it's
hard.
but it's
I think
interesting.
it's quite easy.
Yeah, but you got the picture version, haven't you? And you can lick it and scratch it.
It's the colouring book version.
It's quite thin, isn't it?
It is 200 pages.
Anyway, whilst on holiday last week in the Balearics, while sitting there by the pool drinking cocktails, I decided to start reading the Jeff Bezos annual shareholder letters from 1997 all the way until the present day. It's brilliant. I mean, his vision for Amazon from 1997 and all the different stages and things that have changed. It's an absolute masterclass in business. It's a business MBA. Read one letter a year. It's a business MBA over a month. So do check it out. It's free online. Type Amazon shareholder letters. They're all quite simply archived in order. Absolutely brilliant. And a lot of stuff he predicted has come to fruition. It's definitely worth checking out. Bezos Amazon annual shareholder letters. Back to you.
How was your holiday, Andy?
It was great. They're actually quite short, Cole, so they're within your wheelhouse, mate. Each year is about 4 or 5 pages. It's not like the Buffett ones that are about 10 pages each.
Your trips to Ibiza have changed. Jesus.
So you were some crack.
Do check it out.
Oh, God. Right.
Okay. We are at 84.5 minutes. So I think we will call that a wrap for the day, dear Trappists. Thank you as ever for your precious time. Please do rate and review us on iTunes, 6 out of 5 stars. Do the same thing on your Android podcast app if it now allows you to do so. That would be great. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube. That way, and also subscribe to the podcast. That way, every other Thursday, bi-weekly or fortnightly, whichever route you want to go down to, you'll get a fresh copy of Traps sliding onto your device of choice for you to enjoy. But until the next time, dear Trappists, it's adios from the Trap Pack. Take care out there, and we'll see you on the other side.
On YouTube, have our YouTube numbers increased a lot recently?
Shout out.
Have they increased a lot? We've seen a big uptick.
I can't. There's some noise going on in the background.
Fucking idiot.
I'm not doing that at this moment.
Stop recording.